What took you into public service? Did you kind of think in the back of your head for a while that you wanted to get into it? Or
no clue.
No clue.
No thought at all. And so I was watching my sister and brother-in-law do things for Red Rhinos, an orphanage in Kenya, started by some people in Stockton. They would do annual fundraisers. I'm watching my sister. I'm like, she's really shining. I really appreciate my sister doing it. And my brother-in-law would host some political fundraisers. Like, you got to be involved in the community. So they asked me if I would ask Mike Tyson to come to town and raise money for Red Rhino. So we did. Mike came to town, and while he was here, we barnstormed around. We did probably 8 or 10 fundraisers for communities, veterans, and you name it. Went to schools and mentored kids and talked to you, just outreach in the community. I mean, Mike Tyson's there. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So I stretched every minute of the day out into something for him. And he's like, well, come on, let's go. Let's keep going. So when it's all done, I'm driving him back, and we raised $100,000 for Red Rhino. That was almost their annual budget. So we're driving up to Sacramento. And he goes, Tommy, I want you to do me a favor. I'm like, well, I'm actually sitting where Joe Zeider gave us his a bust that he chartered for us. And so we're sitting in the back. He goes, I want you to do me a favor. I said, what's that? And he goes, I want you to run for office. I'm like, what in that
Mike says
world
this?
are you talking about? He goes, Tommy, I'm telling you, man, you got to run for office. I'm like, that's the craziest thought. Where's that even come from? He goes, Stockton's going through bankruptcy. Is like noted as the worst city to live in. Mike said, I was nervous coming here. I've heard so many things. All my friends saying, like, don't go to Stockton. It's terrible. There's so much crime and there's murder and it's one of the worst cities in America. He goes, but I met so many great people. They respect you. You're reaching out in the community. You're making a difference. He goes, I'm telling you, you got to run for office. I dropped him off at the airport and didn't think a second or twice about it. Right? I'm like,
get out of my car.
See you later, man. I got nothing. I'm a single dad. I've just gone through a divorce, and I'm just keeping my life together and running a business. And I got a little free time. I got crane operators working for me, so things are going okay. Why complicate it, right? So then about a week later, I get a phone call and somebody says, hey, I want to meet with you for lunch. I'm like, I'm available for lunch. So we sit down and he goes, you ever think about running for office? I'm like, you talked to Mike Tyson? And he goes, no, why? I said, Mike said the same thing. I said, all right, what is this about? What tell me about this. And the reality is it struck a chord for me. I had friends of mine. I moved back here. I was living in New York and LA, and I was bi-coastal. I was living apartments in both places. I had a pretty good life in great cities, right? A lot of good friends and doing cosmopolitan things. But if I was going to raise a family, I thought it was going to be more in this home environment, that smaller town.
Right.
But you realize that there's challenges. And a friend of mine's like, yeah, I told my daughters, you graduate college, don't come back to Stockton. I'm like, I just moved back here. What would you tell them that for? It's a great place, good quality of life. And it is.
Right.
I mean, it's boating, the Delta, you've got hunting, fishing, recreation, go an hour in any direction. You can find new and great places from Tahoe to San Francisco. So there's plenty of things to do. And he's like, this place is bad, it's no good, it's trending wrong. And well, what are you doing about that? That's what I kept thinking. What are we doing about that? How can we get involved and make it better? So I'm watching my sister do things in the community and my brother-in-law, and so I studied all these things. So when Mike mentioned it, it kind of did plant a seed. And then another guy mentions it, and then someone else mentioned it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm in. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a difference because I'm going to raise my daughter in a community that I fought and worked for, and I improved the challenges. We're not going to fix problems.
Right.
20 years from now, there's going to be poverty, there's going to be crime, there's going to be blight, there's going to be issues. You're not going to solve the problems, but you can manage and you can work on changing the trajectory of where you're going or what's going on. And if I can do that, as long as I'm blessed to serve as a public servant, I'm not a politician, I'm a public servant. I'm entrusted by members of the public that voted for me twice now as a county supervisor to make decisions to the benefit of our community. And I live in the community that I make the decisions for.